Freezing.
It'll be interesting. Oh no.
You're freezing. You have to do it over.
Hi guys, it's Jack for Delight. I'm Sunny D from South Korea, and we have.
Char from California.
Mm-hmm. Yay! Welcome back, guys. Today, thank you guys. Today our episode is on spirituality with Char. It's going to be about her story. It'll be very, very interesting. So make sure you guys stay tuned because you guys don't want to miss out on this exciting journey. Right, Char?
Sunny is very kind. We'll see if it's interesting, but I'm going to be a jackfruit about this experience. I'm going to be vulnerable, open, and honest.
So I hope you guys enjoy that. But before we begin, we will do our usual party question of the day. Alrighty.
What is it, Sunny? What's her question?
So, okay. If money were no object, what would you do all day?
This is really interesting because I had to do this exercise, which had me have to answer this exact same question. So I'm pretty prepared with my answer. So if money was not an issue, what I would be doing all day is two things. Well, three things. One is what brings me peace is being near the ocean and being near the beach. And so I would probably be living in Hawaii. I would also want to be a restaurateur, so owning a few restaurants and cafes that brought people together. And then also in my time, I would really love to be a travel journalist. And that's because as much as ocean brings me peace, traveling gives me a lot of grounding, which is really interesting because you're always flying when you're traveling. But for me, it just makes me more attuned with the world around me. And then through that, attune with myself.
Wow. Your responses always, I think, kind of express how you are and who you are. Like you love to see the world, you love to explore. Okay.
Yeah. And that's something I know that's me. So I'm not gonna hide it. It's a part of my value.
I think for me, I would also love to live in Hawaii because I love the temperature there, the ocean. And if money were no object, I think I would just produce a lot of content, like write a lot. I think invest in like films, projects. Like I would love to, I guess, invest and participate in creating content that can be consumed globally. Okay, so our party cue today wasn't that funny, but I think it does kind of reflect what we like and what we strive and what we seek for in life, right? No further ado, on to Char's spirituality journey. Tell us about your journey into spirituality. Like first tell us like what was your first encounter or your first experience with spirituality?
Yeah, thanks, Sunny. So it's a long journey. It's an ongoing journey. But it started out with the church. And so my mom and my dad were moving to California. And prior to that, we were a military family, so we bounced around a lot. And church for us was our first roots into Southern California. And so the person who helped us was a pastor of a church. And he helped us find our first house. And he also helped us, find my parents, their community through the church.
Right. Yeah. So it sounds like church for you, rather than your individual independent walk, it was more of a community, like, like what you live your life through, kind of like the backbone.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything else because it was in part of how we first started in California. Like it was, really heavily involved in the church.
I think a lot of Asian Americans have the same story. Like church isn't initially about like God and them or God and faith or spirituality and faith. It's more of like church is like a to-go community where you take care of everything. Okay, then I was wondering that how did your like church community spirituality, how did that evolve? Like when did you first want to explore spirituality as an individual, not through like a family or not as a community, but as you seeking spirituality?
Yeah, so church was still heavily involved in my life
Mhm.
um, until college, but it took me um, building my own life outside of my family, moving to New York City, and trying to build those roots again with church. Churches that I was involved in were more focused on exclusivity and acceptance. And that was something that I, and this is just my story in terms of the churches that I found was that's not really a part of who I am. Like what connects me, and I learned this more recently, more succinctly, is what is a part of my core is connecting people with differences. And I love to do it in, different but creative ways. And so church wasn't that place for me anymore. And so I wanted, I think because was such a routine in my life, I still was looking for spirituality, but I was looking for it in a different way outside of church. And what it took me years after that experience, but I found that through my love of national parks, being with nature, being with these amazing trees, these amazing landscapes, where you would essentially see people from different backgrounds, from different parts of the world, experiencing this beauty with each other, but more importantly, seeing something bigger than themselves through that process. And that was kind of my way back into spirituality, which was through Mother Nature.
That's interesting that you mentioned that because I've actually heard similar stories in the sense that at church people will actually see the worst in people, or
Yeah.
or they will not find God or whoever the greater being, but it's when they see like the ocean, the trees, the flowers, when they see this creation, this masterpiece of nature, like there is something greater out there, and like you said, when they see that diverse layer of beauty and that acceptance and embrace, it really kind of, I guess, stimulates or it kind of brings out their spirituality. So your personal independent spirituality, like the deep moments began with your connection with nature.
And it even became bigger when I started to experience nature in different ways. So last year I went to Burning Man, and I don't know if you went to Burning Man or have heard about Burning Man.
I've never, I only heard about it through you and two other people, and I was like, "What's Burning Man? Like, are they
Uh,
burning a man?"
but essentially, like what it is, it's yeah, they are burning a man statue. He represents humanity in a way, and like how
Ah.
temporary humanity is, and how we can create these incredible pieces of art that are aligned to a certain theme. And last year, was a big personal development year, and the theme of Burning Man last year was metamorphosis, and it was incredible to see these wonderful pieces of art. Like I remember seeing this like 100-room Dutch windmill mansion, and um, they spent years building it, and they burnt it down. And it's just incredible to see these wonderful pieces of art that are so temporary, but they're essentially just made for this experience. And you're one with the artist, you're one together.
I feel like still the church girl in you may have been kind of reserved about going to Burning Man. Like, what made you decide to go? I guess that's my first question. And like, what was your like most memorable spiritual experience there?
Yeah, and so I decided to go because I read the 10 Principles of Burning Man.
Hmm.
I think the church girl in me was hesitant, but also really wanted to go. But
Right.
when I read it, I was like, wow, this is all about accepting people for who they are. One of the you know most powerful principle is self-reliance, like radical self-reliance. Also being inclusive and accepting of who people are and letting them come as they are without any criticism or judgment. And then the immediacy of like giving back to the playa and giving back to each other without any sort of um, without sort of expectation, but it's more about being in the present together. With that said, one of my most profound experiences was a night in which I got lost. So what happens a lot in Burning Man is you at night you like want to like hang out with your campmates or your friends, but because of the dust storms, you eventually get lost and you experience these like works of art together, and then you get lost and you experience it on your own, but then somehow you come back together. And so I got lost and everyone else got lost. And I was like,
That's
enjoying,
scary.
yeah, but it's in the city, so you're safe. That's where Burning Man is so focused on self-reliance, because you get lost, and what happens when you do? And so I was surrounded by some of the most incredible pieces of art, and I just like stayed there and just like experienced this art with other people. And I like started dancing. I like found like a club and started dancing. I found this like really interesting like gas station, and they had like snacks and drinks. I was ready to go back home. I didn't know what time it was because no one really wears watches, because it's not about time. It's being in the moment, being in the present. And I got lost. There was another dust storm, and so I was like, okay, before I go back home, I'm going to use the restroom. And then finally, I get back to my bike, and then I see this rhino. And I'm like, wait, there's a rhino. And then I see all these, like, I see hundreds of people following this rhino. And so, quick backstory, there's art cars, and art cars are decorated. Some look like animals and some look like ships. And so this one looked like a rhino. It's called Dusty Rhino.
Okay,
Um,
because I was like, do you mean there was a real? I was like, Char.
that was it
I
was
mean, okay,
we
all right.
weren't no we weren't in a safari. we were
Okay, I was like,
we were in Nevada. Quick backstory is there's DJs, right? And so I remember from one of my friends that the DJ set for sunrise was going to be on the Rhino, and then there was going to be a DJ by the name or Tycho there. And I was like, wait, that's the Rhino. And I was like, oh shoot, it's almost sunrise. Like, I can't believe it's almost sunrise. So I was like, you know what, I'm not going to go home. I'm going to experience sunrise. And so I like follow the Rhino. He happens to just like stop right in front of me. I just like leave my like bike parked, and it was one of the most incredible experiences because he played his first song, and then it slowly went from dark to light. And the moment it went to complete light, there were skydivers who were just like falling from the sky,
oh,
and they had different colors, from colors of blue and yellow and green to some of them wearing colors of the rainbow. And I was like, wow. And then at Burning Man, when you experience the sunrise together, you also howl together as well. So as they were falling down the sky, there was also this moment where everyone was howling together and giving each other hugs. And it was like also
that sounds very like powerful.
it was so powerful.
Like whoa.
It was so powerful, so powerful. And then like the foodie in me was like, oh my gosh, I'm so hungry now. And then right behind me, there were people who were giving out orange juice, pancakes, and also like izakaya skewers, just like passing it out for free.
Oh
And I
my
was like,
god.
what kind of place is this? It's so magical. And so it was like profound because I was lost, but somehow I found home,
Hmm.
through the Rhino. And then I was also nourished by the wonderful giving of the food around me.
Wow, that sounds like a moment that cannot be forgotten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
Wow.
remember it. And that's like, I think those moments is the reason why I want to continue going.
All right. Wow. Okay, so right now we experience you, growing up in church as like having church as just a community,
Yeah.
being young, and then you, I guess, embark on an individual, like, independent journey to find your spirituality. And your first deepest moment came with your connection with nature, knowing that there's a greater being out there,
Mhm.
and then you continue to, I guess, experience a lot of different things. Like at Burning Man, like you talked about, you were lost, then you were
Yeah.
found, and you experience this intense connection with people. And then, like, what other episodes do you have?
Yeah. I mean, after Burning Man, I just like really wanted to get involved in this inner journey with myself. And
Hmm.
so I think it's really important, this is just my story, but also, my journey to
Mhm.
self-love
Right.
was, it really takes being a place where you're alone to find solitude and to also find love.
Mhm.
And so another way that I experienced this through nature was, I went to Costa Rica in January of 2020 this year, and I went on like a week long trip, to Costa Rica, focused on ayahuasca. And so ayahuasca is kind of a sacred ritual of medicine. Ayahuasca, the medicine, it is called the vine of the dead, and it's performed by shamans who have spent years and decades getting to learn the plant, but also getting to learn the spirit of the plant, and then showing it to others as well, so that they can go on this journey on their own. And
Mhm.
so I spent my time in Costa Rica learning from shamans, going into my own experience with Mother Nature, and kind of loving, Mother Nature in a more, profound, beautiful way.
But what like when you were there, what were you seeking?
I think I was seeking myself. The medicine does it, it removes all those barriers and figures out what you subconsciously want without the inner ego being there to block that decision. And so what it also does is it opens up a lot of memories. And so what I wanted to understand was how, I became who I became, and also how I can kind of, you know, better the world, but also through the lens of bettering myself.
Yeah, thank you for talking about all this. And when I hear your narrative, it really just shows me how a person, like a girl from just a community, you're being fed. You're being fed what spirituality is. You're being fed everything, right?
Yeah.
But I feel like since like your early 20s, you began this journey where you start from like, I guess, breast milk to like baby food to solid food. You're constantly on a journey to become more self-aware, to find who you are within and get more in touch with the spirituality. And it's very impressive to see you constantly work so hard and keep pushing yourself to even, I feel like there would have been boundaries that are uncomfortable for you, but instead of like hiding, you continue to like challenge yourself and move forward, because that's really hard. That's really hard. Like you said, the ed and ego, people don't like what's uncertain. People don't
Yeah.
like what's uncomfortable. But for me, it's very admirable how you continue to like push yourself to make yourself grow. And like, yeah, your journey is very, like you said, learning how to be alone, but being okay with being alone. And that experience, that journey is very amazing. Thank you.
And I'm just going to share one of the most profound moments of the
Okay.
ayahuasca, because I did
Okay.
the Burning Man. And so, one of the most profound moments in terms of ayahuasca was the last night. And so the last night we had, a really, we had the shamans come, and they performed a healing ceremony. And so they did it by gender, and so I was a part of the female healing ceremony, and where essentially, we would sit in a circle,
Mhm.
and the shamans would just pray for you, pray for your heart to be open, pray for
Mhm.
you to experience love, but also pray for you to give abundant love in the world.
Mhm.
And they didn't just like pray and then leave. They sang to you. They put
Mhm.
like this, like, medicinal holy water on you. They prayed on your heart. They prayed on your head. They massaged you. Um, and they didn't ask for anything in return. And they stayed up for about like, they, they stayed up from 7:30 p.m. to roughly around 11:30 a.m. without any sleep. And some of us were able to sleep, but they didn't sleep at all. They just
Wow.
continuously gave the whole time to us. And I think it was the most profound experience, because it's kind of similar to Burning Man too, where all that they were doing was giving love without any expectations of return, because they knew
That's such
that
an
if,
amazing feeling. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that's what spirituality is for me, is like seeing that what you're doing, the choices that you make, are bigger than yourself.
Mhm.
And by going into the mode of love where you're giving to someone without any expectations of return, but being, you know, devout to them through your own love of yourself is so important. And that's
Right.
what I think spirituality is kind of
Mm,
currently for me based on
hmm.
the experiences I've had.
Right. No, I totally agree with you. Giving without having anything, expecting anything in return is so much easier said than done. Like it's so much easier, and it's easier to. I mean, it's just so hard. Like
Mhm.
there might be people that you don't like. There might be situations where you're like not comfortable with. There might be situations that you don't agree with, but having to consciously respond or make a decision based on love rather than your own pride or ego, that is so difficult. Like it's
Yeah.
so difficult. And the fact that you're trying to like do that, that's so big. That is so huge. I
Yeah.
hope
And
you
it's,
know how huge
and,
that is.
and it's different. You don't want to, you know, forgive someone who's done wrong to you. Like you forgive them internally, but it doesn't mean that you have to stay with them, right?
Right.
Like
Mm-hmm.
it's about giving love and kindness without any expectations, and
Mm-hmm.
also rising above what
Mm-hmm.
you deserve when it comes to love. So it's
Right.
all these three things together, and being open to opening your heart in terms of love, but also knowing your own value and your own potential in regards to how you want to give love to the world. Because
Right.
I think that's an important part of spirituality is it's deepening your own love for yourself.
Right. Like for example, when you forgive, I feel like a lot of people forgive conditionally. Like I forgive you, but then you better A, B, and C, you know? But I feel like your version of forgiveness is forgiving without expecting anything in return, but forgiving within your own like heart. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you forgive in a way that you're able to, and your forgiveness comes from you, but it's not like conditional or it's not like, like waverable based on that person, you know?
Yeah, it's not dependent. And I think something
Yeah.
that I learned in my experience with the shaman is closure doesn't mean that you have to have a conversation with another person.
Yeah, I totally.
Closure is that feeling in your heart that you
Mhm,
close that chapter, that you
mhm,
still love that person,
mhm.
but that you want to rise above what your potential is in terms of how you want to love
Right, you're no longer controlled by the emotional ties, you
and the
know?
circumstance. Yeah.
Right, right. That's very beautiful that you're going through all this.
Thanks, Sunny. So let's close it off with the quote. Um, and before I share this quote, if you love our conversations, please subscribe or like or comment, share ideas. This is our experience or my experience when it comes to spirituality. But we love to hear your stories when it comes to your spiritual journeys, and maybe even invite some of you into our conversations. And so, the quote that I want to share comes from that same night where the shaman said this. He said that in the physical world, what's abundant is gravity. In the spiritual world, what abundant is love.
Mm.
And I think when it comes to being a jackfruit or a human, if you focus on the abundance that we already have, which is love, you learn to love yourself.
Amen, sister.
Amen. See you next time. And again, thank you for being in this journey with us.
Thank you, Char, for sharing.
Thank
See
you,
you
Sunny,
guys.
for witnessing. Bye.